Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Preference. We are super glad you made it. We have some exciting information to share with you today to really help you land those high paying jobs. And it all starts with initial conversations. So, with that, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. Help this channel grow because helping each other is what this is all about, right? If we don't help each other grow, what are we doing at the end of the day, really? And the more that we get our folks hired in places, the more that our folks could then hire our other folks, if you get what I'm saying. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Chris. Yeah, the churn, man. Let's get this thing churning. So, Chris, what do we have today?
Hey, Jason. Hey, Randy. Look, there's a couple of things we're going to talk about today. One, we're going to put in the personal brand bucket, and inside of that, we're going to talk about elevator pitches and what they are and how to be ready. And then we're going to talk about some new stuff that's just come out from the White House and the VA that relates to spouse hiring, veteran spouses. So let's start with personal brand. And I'm going to pitch this to both you, Randy and Jason. When we say personal brand, what comes to mind for you guys? Randy, you go first.
I think it's experiences we've had in the military. So personal brand can be a lot of things to a lot of different people, but for me, I am a sum of my life experiences. So initially I was a pilot in the Navy, and then I transitioned over into the Air National Guard. So when I think about my personal brand, it's not so much, who I am or what I am. It's a sum of my life experiences. And I think that really connects with employers, because we're not just who we are at present moment. We're everything that we were up to this point now. So experiences we had flying, in my case, are germane. Experiences I've had after I transitioned to the Air National Guard and became a weekend warrior, so to speak, are germane. So personal brand to me means sum of life experiences, particularly all those trainings, all those deployments, all those good times, bad times, and everything in between that we had in the military. So that's my take. I'll kick it over to Jason and get what you have to say.
Yeah. So personal brand, right? The first initial thing that comes to my mind is that you can make it what you want it to be. In other words, you could have a life history of X, but you need to transition over to here. How can you bridge that gap and change your personal brand? It's ever changing right now. Obviously, the longer you are in a current type of a situation with, as Randy was talking about, all the different experiences that you can pull out, the stronger your brand becomes. I'm a big fan of whatever my brand is, because it's changed over the course of time. Whatever my brand is, I like to bring additional value to me, right? So to whoever I'm talking with. So if I'm talking to a recruiter, I might look for ways to incorporate that I have a network of people that I communicate with, a sphere of influence, if you will, and I can utilize that to help fill other gaps within their organization that I want to be a part of, right? Of our organization, even if I'm interviewing, right? Because I'm bringing another layer of value. I'm very value, minded with my brand. My brand is find the holes. I have all the plugs, right? I could plug all the holes with my brand. And that's kind of how I think about it from just a picture perspective, if you will, that I like to try to paint. My brand is a problem solver and a gap filler, if you will. And that's what I try to portray in my conversations with whoever it is. In this case, we'll talk about employers.
So
how about you, Chris?
Yeah, here's a couple of things I'm hearing. It's an aggregation of all your life experiences, and specifically for us in the military, we're immediately branded. We're branded with rank. We're branded with ribbons. We're branded with uniforms, and sometimes that makes things easier. But what it really does is it only shows you the surface. It doesn't show you all the things behind that make you you. And I also like what you said, Jason. Personal brand is something that you manage. It's a product. It evolves. It's both aspirational in terms of what you want to become, just as much as it is who you are. Now, in the end, your brand is defined by the people who are around you and what they say about you. And if you don't manage it, you can't control it. Now, control is not necessarily manipulation, but either one of those isn't bad as long as people are walking away and they know truthfully and authentically who you are, what you stand for, what makes you different, what value you bring. And we've spoken about this many, many times in previous sessions where your goal, whether it be the interview, whether it be the resume, whether it be the LinkedIn profile, is to make sure that people can clearly see the value and differentiation between you and the 20,000 other people who have applied to this job. Now, I'm going to pitch it back to Randy and Jason, where we could talk about examples in our own experience of how we've made sure that people were clear on who we were in the brand. So taking all of these data points and synthesizing it into something that we would call an elevator pitch, which is something you're given explanations in the elevator if you had 2 minutes with the CEO, or anywhere else as a means of letting people know who you are and what value you bring. Randy, Jason, anybody want to go jump on that first?
I'll take it. I think the first thing, if we're talking about elevator pitches here, that you need to do when crafting such a thing is get some mentorship. This is not one of those things that you need to do alone. There's content on this channel that can help you. There's people in your network from the military that can help you, previous supervisors, previous colleagues. Maybe you've had some education along the way. So think of some of those teachers and instructors that you've had that really made an impact in your life. If you've already had civilian employment, think of colleagues and supervisors from that realm that have really made a big impact. So before you get into an elevator pitch and your ability to speak about yourself, get some mentorship, get some guidance. So that's step number one, in my opinion. Step number two is understanding the input and the output. So you have this input, which is your elevator speech, so to speak. The output isn't always going to be what you want. You're not necessarily going to get the feedback you want, but you're going to boost your confidence every time. So tip number two from my perspective is you're going to boost your confidence once you refine this process. So don't expect perfection right off the bat, but expect and know that you're going to have a boost in your confidence every single time you go down this path. So that's my take. Jason, I'll kick it over to you.
So my mindset is always impression, right? You want to leave an impression. They're not going to remember everything you say, but they're going to remember how they felt when you said it. So that's why it goes back to what Randy was saying, right? The comfortability, I guess that's a word. I don't know how comfortable and secure you are with saying it, right? So the more times that you repeat it, the more times you practice it, the more time, say it in your head, walking down the street, whatever, the more it's going to just roll off the tongue, right? Use words that you use, right? Don't try to find some fancy word that you can't even say, right? Because you're going to fumble on it. So be
like comfortability,
like that one. So that's something I don't use. So I wouldn't throw that in there because that's not really a normal word for me, right? So you want to be smart with what you're saying. You don't want a bunch of 3-letter words, but you get the point. You want it to be short. You want it to be concise. You want it to have impact. You want to be able to say who you are, what you do, what you want to achieve. Somewhere in there, have that ask, right? Or state that what you're trying to get to, right? This is who I am. This is what I've done. This is where I'm going. This is my plan, right? But very short and concise. One of the things that you mentioned, Chris, and I wanted to dive into this real quick, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on it, is you mentioned your brand also includes who you are around. I'm a fan of that. You are who you are around. You're guilty by association, good or bad, right? So it's an important piece of the pie. And my quick personal kind of story on that to build success was when I was in the mortgage industry. I was a sales manager running a team and all that. And as I was growing in that industry, I had to work with a lot of different realtors and title companies and all of that. The realtors out there, some of them were very high producing, high volume, professional realtors that they were the golden, opportunity that you wanted to work with as a lender. What I did was started creating relationships with these realtors, not really asking them for business, but hanging out with them a little bit, right? Let's go have lunch. Let's do this. I became guilty by association. Other realtors thought they were giving me business, so therefore they started to give me business because they wanted to be like them. So that association was really important, right? People's perceptions are very important. So I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on that. If you can interweave some of that into your response too, Chris, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on elevator pitch too, of course.
Yeah, it's one thing to have your brand statement or your elevator pitch. It's one thing to say you can or you did, and it's another thing to make sure that that aligns with what people see and what their feedback is. And so that's why the management, you're running the business of you when you transition, when you're in private industry. Now, you may not need this if you go, kind of into a government role and things are time-based or relatively consistent with how military does things. But even in the military, it's important, especially if you have career aspirations of moving to the next level or going into management or whatnot. Managing what people say about you is an important career skill. And again, there's a difference between manipulation and control. Control is not bad. So your words, both spoken and written, email, text, Slack, everything, actions and decisions that you make, your body language, every interaction is going to either detract or contribute to that brand alignment that you so seek. And I think regardless of whether your brand is something that you want consistency, right? So every actor, every social media person, everybody, if the really good ones, people understand who they are and they have that brand. And so it's like going to McDonald's. They know what they like at McDonald's. They know what they don't like, but they know wherever you go in the world, that hamburger is going to taste the same. There's predictability. And so when you get into managing your brand, you have to make sure that you're getting feedback and that you're sensing and you're using intuition and you're actively asking people, hey, how was that interaction? You're actively explaining to people, hey, I aspire to be this. I wanted to behave this way. Give me your feedback. And that's what Randy's comments about mentoring. And we could all mentorship is not a higher level to lower level thing. That's the traditional. But mentorship is peer-to-peer, the buddy system. Mentorship is asking your kids for feedback on how you're showing up. And that's scary enough. And it never comes out the way that you intended, but it's feedback and it's data. And it's important because if they see you that way, others will too. Randy, up to you.
I love this conversation. So I'm going to throw out there a couple of pieces of advice, and I think they really say the same thing. But A's associate with A's, B's associate with C's. A's hire A's, B's hire C's. And what do I mean by that? So this is getting back to Jason's point. I don't mean this in a judgmental way. We're all at different places in life. We all have different groups of friends. But from a professional context, let's look at what you're doing while you're in the military or you're a military spouse. You show up at a unit, you receive orders there. The people that are around you are typically sourced by the government. You don't have a lot of say in who you associate with. You're just part of a team achieving a mission. In the civilian world, it's different. Who you associate with professionally is a bit more of a choice. And so I suggest finding a network of very successful, back to Jason's point, individuals in your industry of choice and associating with them. That might just be meeting them for an occasional lunch, or that might just be a phone call or an email to kind of check in with them. But the more you build that network of successful people, the more there's going to be inertia behind your success. So A's hang out with A's, B's hang out with C's. And what I mean by the latter is that people who always associate with folks that are just a little less successful than them typically do so they can put themselves on a pedestal. And I don't think that's a healthy mindset. Same thing with hiring. A lot of you will transition into the civilian world and be in a managerial capacity. You'll need to bring talent on board your organization. That wasn't the case in the military in a lot of circumstances. They just received orders. There was a pipeline and people showed up at the unit and you didn't have a lot of say in who was detailed there. It's different in the civilian world. A's hire A's. That means if you're a top performing supervisor, you want to find folks that are smarter than you, more able than you, better than you, and bring them into the fold so the team produces even better and you're not threatened by that. So that's my take on it, guys.
Jason, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you, Randy, and you make some really good points there regarding that whole aspect. I love the A to A, the B to C, that type of stuff. It's very true. I will tell you my thought that popped in as well through that kind of dialogue was, when we're not scared, nervous, apprehensive, when we're not feeling those things, we're not growing at all. You're staying stagnant and you're going nowhere. You need to put yourself out there. I'm like the elevator pitch just by itself. Having it come out of your mouth is like, oh, like you're scared. You're nervous. You're apprehensive. Should I say it? Should I not? Then the person leaves and you're like, oh, man, I should have, right? Put yourself out there. Put yourself in those positions to feel those things. Because if you're not, well, you're probably a C, right? So lean out. Make it happen. And well, maybe C's can jump to A's, right? Potentially over time, where B's kind of are stuck in that intermediate world to make themselves feel better, right? So anyway, that was my thought. Was there any thoughts from you, Chris, on kind of that mindset?
Yeah, look, I think real A's are people who can make B's and C's grow and turn into, because they're able to understand sometimes even the things that those people don't understand about what makes their value add, and then they could build on that and leverage that and get them performing at the optimal level. And in my definition, an A is somebody who's performing at their optimal level. Now, that doesn't always necessarily mean that they're a great fit for the role or for your company, but they understand what value they bring. They're crafting that value over time. They're not just resting on it. In that they're looking for different ways for their value to create value for the bigger organization, the value that they bring to create value to the bigger organization. I think this is a great topic to go deep into, because there's practices around A, B, and C, and experiences around A, B, and C, and things that have been held up in courts of laws on a very kind of high level, easy way to talk about performers versus non-performers. But the reality is that you have control over your brand. You have control over how you talk about the value that you bring. You have the ability to speak your truth to the folks around you so they can reciprocate by giving feedback, but they also can help by stating to others, when you say, this is who I am, this is the value I bring, that they also have your back, right? So brand is really about alignment to reality, and that can grow and that can evolve. Now, again, all of these are connected in one way or the other, from first touch with somebody over the phone, from the tell me about yourself conversation, from what you put on LinkedIn, from how you order the bullets on your resume. All of these things are connected. And that's why we bring it up. Now, in a follow-up session, we'll also get a little bit deeper into how to build that personal brand statement, how to build that elevator pitch. But for now, we'll call it end of topic, and let's move on to other parts of the agenda, Jason.
All right. Well, what I wanted to do before I transition, I did want to throw out one more thing. And again, this is just a thought that sparked in my mind. We're talking about the A, the B, the C, those aspects of employers or people, what have you. One of the things that I heard at one point was you have different levels in a different way. And one is you have your rock stars, you have your rock solid, right? Your steady eddies, right? You rock solid, and then you just have your rocks, right? So are you going to be a rock star? Are you going to be rock steady, or are you going to be a rock, right? So you kind of have to decide where you're going to fall, and really work that, and understanding that there's really, you're hearing it in different ways. There's kind of ABC, and then the rock analogy here, and everything that you do is really contributing to one of those. So pick which one you want it to be, which one you want it to be in, right? So with that, I'm going to kick it over to you, Randy. Please let us know your thoughts, and if you want to move into any other subjects.
No, I agree with everything that you said. I think there's a way that we can help the broader community here, though, and tie this in a little bit for military spouses, because they're an important part of the folks that we want to reach out and help on this channel. And I think, going back to the theme that we're discussing today of elevator pitches and personal brand, I'll throw this out there for military spouses, and then pass it over to Chris. The first is, we need to help our spouse community break down the military civilian divide. They've been part of a military family, if you will, for years, sometimes decades, and then they're transitioning to civilian employment. They've likely been a civilian all along, but their employment history may have been a bit staggered. They may have gaps when PCS has occurred. So the personal brand piece and the elevator pitch are ways that a spouse can help break the military civilian divide, because a lot of these civilian employers are not going to understand what it means and how difficult it is to be a military spouse. And they're not going to understand all the amazing skills and tools that they get in their tool chest as they go through that journey. So Chris, I'm going to toss it over to you and get your thoughts on this whole military spouse component.
Yeah, one of the great outcomes of COVID is there are way more jobs that are available in a work from home situation or work from anywhere situation. And there are lots of websites that have roles posted they're all work from home types of jobs. And so the expansion of those types of jobs has been awesome, because many moons ago, we created a program specifically aimed at hiring military spouses, no matter where they were stationed, who had some accounting background to do some chat-based or telephone-based, and then that transitioned into kind of Zoom-based tax help. And we didn't hire a lot, but the ones that we did were fantastic, that got highest ratings. And we took that and we kept learning from it, and we kept realizing, we knew that they were hidden gems, but once you start breaking down some of the barriers to entry, then you unleash this entire population of people who are ready to work, who have the will and the skill to do it. And it comes with a little bit of accommodation at times, because they're on different time zones, or if the spouse is deployed, you have to work around some of the challenges. But it is a great underutilized and underpenetrated talent source that, if there are any companies listening to us today, that we're happy to actually talk to and help break that wide open for you.
That's awesome. Now, one of the things that recently came out is something called the 4+1 commitment. And this is really in line with the spouse thing, Randy and Chris. What the 4+1 commitment is it's a partnership between government and private employers, and it was developed by Blue Star Families, Hiring Our Heroes, and the Department of Defense Military Spouse Employment Program, or partnership, to hire and support military spouses specifically. So this is a great, commitment or program that's put out there. I will tell you that the VA has committed to this initiative to hire spouses. And when we think about the VA, we think about a gigantic organization. I mean, it is the largest healthcare provider in the U.S. not to mention all of the VBA side, which is the benefits administration. When you think of the VA, it's a three-headed monster. You have the healthcare administration, the benefits administration, and the national cemeteries. That's under the VA umbrella. So there's a lot of job opportunities. What this encompasses is not just VA employment, but also other organizations. And I don't have the list in front of me, but more and more organizations are signing up for this. I'm going to read you a little snippet out of the VA's announcement here, just for your awareness. And then I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on the VA as an option, right? Is it a good fit for military spouses because of their environment and so forth? So I'm going to read this to you here real quick. This commitment was championed by Dr. Jill Biden and is a voluntary commitment by employers to adopt at least one of the following military spouse employment policies that could expand employment and career opportunities for military spouses. So I'm going to read you the four. Facilitate job transferability, important. Offer remote or telework, Chris's point. Offer flexible work hours. Provide paid or permissive permanent change of station leave, PCS leave. VA has committed to all four of those policies, as well as extending leave without pay status to military spouses whose active duty military member receives PCS orders. So that's just one little small snippet. Bottom line is VA is on board to support and hire military spouses. Randy, your thoughts?
I love it. I think it's an awesome program. And let's kind of go back to the basics with it. First, this is a voluntary pledge that these companies are taking. And I think it's absolutely sending them in the right direction to help some of these spouses out and some of these even service members. The job transferability piece is important. That's, I think, talking about internally to the company. So you have certain skills, you have certain attributes, you're doing a certain job in the company. Let's make it easier for you to move within the organization to help support you as a spouse. So there's that. Second one is huge, telework or hybrid work at least. I enjoy working from home. I think a lot of people do. I'm actually more efficient when I'm working from home. So in the post-COVID environment, like you mentioned, Jason, embracing telework is becoming the new norm. And the more companies do that, the easier it is for spouses to stay with that organization as they move from the East Coast to the West Coast or what have you. Flexible work hours are important. Again, we talked about this time zone thing, and then we talk about families. Flexibility is the key. And when you offer an employee flexibility, my experience isn't that's not really a rope that they tend to hang themselves with. They don't tend to be off doing things that are so flexible as that it detracts from their productivity. I've actually found that when you give people some flexibility and some say in what their day looks like, they become more productive. So that's huge. And then permissive or paid leave for PCS is really important. I mean, I think virtually anybody watching this channel that is either has worn the uniform or has been a spouse has been through the whole PCS juggernaut. We know what goes into it. It's couple of months of planning, up to a month to execute, and then it's probably another month or more just to let the dust settle. So in that time period, it's important for spouses and families to have some flexibility so they can kind of leave their own or their old perch and find their new footing. So I think it's great. I love the 4 and the +1 being the VA piece of it. I think it's a wonderful initiative. That's my take. I'll kick it over to you, Chris, for what you think.
Yeah, for the spouses out there, I think it's amazing to have a place to go to where there's a select group of employers who are already kind of pre-validated and pre-qualified to be able to build the situation that is going to be amenable to your success. Leverage that as much as possible. Now, it doesn't mean that they're the only people out there, but that's a pretty good indication of you're knocking on the right doors. Secondly, the resource that we have spoken about inside of companies, if a company has an employee resource group specifically built around either remote work or military veterans. Those are also good places to tap into, because you're going to feel more comfortable about asking for what the military leave policies are from those folks, as opposed to maybe a recruiter who may not necessarily understand fully, who may not be doing full-time recruitment of transitioning military or spouses, that would have that information on the tip of their tongue. And then the third place you might want to check too is your ESGR ombudsman. Did I say that right, Jason? To me, that's one of those words where I always chop it up. I can't hear you.
I wasn't in the Navy, so I don't know.
So, you know, and many times they'll have the inside skinny because they partner with companies for DoD awards like Freedom Award and whatnot. There's some interesting information to other employers who are actually really good military, supportive of military spouses. So I think those three things are good tips to have. But, you know, kudos to the VA, kudos to Blue Star Families, kudos to Dr. Jill Biden, who continues to be supportive, even back when she was, I don't know, what do you call the first lady of the VP? Second lady? Was she second lady in the Obama? Whatever. She was doing great work back then for the military community, and so kudos to Dr. Jill Biden and all those involved in making this happen.
Yeah,
so
I think
I wanted
it's
to
a wonderful program. Just a couple thoughts too. As you look at these companies and the companies that have made this pledge, the top two things that come to mind for me is take a look at what their job transferability, that was the first one we talked about, program looks like. Figure out how you can move within the company when PCSs or transitions to civilian employment happen and people kind of leave the military, and then understand their remote and telework policy. Not everybody's comfortable teleworking. So if that's not for you, part one, which is the transferability piece, is going to be more important. So that's my take. But Jason, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, you know, I wanted to throw in Craig Newmark's name, because Craig Newmark, who's the founder of Craigslist, and he is such, and I know that this is kind of your wheelhouse, and I might let you, Chris, go after me so you can kind of just give a little more personal insight on Craig. But for those that don't know, he's totally all about helping veterans and spouses. He supports Blue Star Families, the Do Your Part campaign. So he supports that through the Craig Newmark philanthropies, which I'm surprised I was able to say that word. So one of the things I wanted to throw out here real quick, then I'll kick it over to you, Chris, is I'm going to read this off of the list here of companies currently, or at least the first 12. So Hiring Our Heroes and Blue Star Families recognized the 12 original signatories during a ceremony at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in December of 2023, so 3 months ago. This list includes Starbucks, T-Mobile, and just those two alone are everywhere. Like those are in every town that has more than 20,000 people. So Starbucks, T-Mobile, PenFed Credit Union, which is Pentagon Federal Credit Union, a word I can't say, Telemyd, I'm not sure, TELEMYND, USAA, Nextdoor, Navy Federal Credit Union, Comcast, NBC, Universal, First Command Financial Services, Booz Allen, Hamilton, TriWest Healthcare Alliance, and Johnson & Johnson. So that's your Big 12 out the gate. VA has joined that list, obviously. So that list has grown. I don't have the access to the full list, but there is a growing number. And if your company wants to support military spouses, encourage them to do so. Send them a link from Hiring Our Heroes, and it gives them access on how they could sign up to support military spouses. Chris, over to you. Give us your personal experiences with Craig for sure, and then any of your thoughts.
Yeah. Craig Newmark is an amazing human being. I've had the privilege of working very closely with Craig on the board at Vets in Tech when we first got Vets in Tech up and running. He was the sponsor for the first hackathon that we ever had, and continues to offer huge donations to help military members transition specifically into cyber careers and technology oriented careers, because he sees that that's a great way to build, wealth and financial stability. And he offers that to spouses and loved ones just as much as he does the veteran, the transition veteran. One of the things that I'd jump onto is, Jason, you'd mentioned about making your employer aware of some of these programs. And I think that's really, really important. Not even if they don't sign up for the programs, for the commitments, it's to get them understanding how to help veterans and their loved ones. So if they take the playbooks that these companies actually use and use them, that's just as important as them actually signing up and saying, hey, we're making a commitment. I understand, and I've brought this to many a company. And sometimes people are hesitant to make a commitment, not because they don't believe in the cause, but specifically because planning in the future, committing to a certain number of jobs is very difficult these days, right? So know that it doesn't come from a place of lack of empathy. It's just the way business, especially private industry, has been so choppy, that companies do, caution a little bit about making specific commitments. But that doesn't mean that you can't help change policy. That doesn't mean that you can't help their TA team understand more. That doesn't mean that you can't get the chief people officer or chief human resources officer spiritually on board to be open-minded to these things. So leverage the details, leverage the data, leverage the relationships and commitments. But it is, every little bit helps.
Yeah, I'll just add in, sometimes when you're approaching your employer about these things, helping them get to yes is very important. Make it easy for them. So that could be something as easy as bullet number 3, which is offering flexible work hours. If an employee can align with, Eastern time zone, if they're in Mountain time, that might help them with their kids' activities. Or if they want to align with the Pacific time zone, if they're on the East Coast, it's a cost neutral way for an employer to give some flexibility to their employees without, going through the process of creating a telework policy or going through all their jobs and figuring out how job transferability will work. Make it easy for your employer to say yes, and just suggest something simple. Hey, flexible work hours based off a time zone. I typically do that when I hire. When I hire somebody, I will let them choose which time zone that they want to align their work efforts with. And that's fine with me. It's cost neutral. It's the same amount of work in a day, and it gives them, some control over their lives. So that's my take on that, but I'll throw it back over to Jason to get your take.
Yeah, everything we've said all makes sense. And finding companies that support you as a spouse or a veteran or a current military member is important. Understanding your elevator pitch, refining it, really kind of honing it in, being able to recite it and say it with confidence is very important. All of those things coupled together are going to help you just be a better you and make it to the next level. And then you can share that information with your sphere of influence to help them rise as well, which is back to Chris's point of a good A brings up the B's and C's. So thanks, Chris, for that. So with that, we'll go ahead and end it here. We really, really appreciate all of the support, and we appreciate the thumbs up and the likes, or I guess that's the same thing. Thumbs up and likes. There you go. Whatever. It kind of counts as twice if you do it, I guess. Whatever. So we really appreciate you guys, and we're really looking forward to doing the next one here really shortly. So we'll see you soon. Have a great one, and we'll see you next time.